Welcome to the deep dive.
Today we are figuring out if this is, just a temporary blip or a total rewiring of North American freight. Because looking at the board this week feels less like tracking a market and more like wrestling a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces are actively changing shapes in your hands. Yeah, that's exactly the reality we're facing right now. You have these massive contradictory forces colliding all at once. Like, let's look at the Southeast first. Jacksonville just saw this huge, sudden spike in rejected loads.
Wait, just a minor fluctuation or something bigger?
Oh, no, it's much bigger.
Yeah.
We're talking about a scenario where capacity basically vanished almost overnight. And the underlying mechanism here is usually trucks rejecting contracted freight because they're chasing better volume elsewhere. Or there's just a genuine localized equipment imbalance catching everyone totally off guard.
And that's not happening in a vacuum, right? Because you stack that localized chaos on top of global pressures. Like the geopolitical tensions in the Middle East are causing fuel to spike, which means those related fuel surcharges are climbing rapidly.
Right, and that adds a whole layer of friction.
Yeah, but here's the part that really confuses me. If the Southeast is struggling to find trucks, yet we're seeing this massive fire hose of demand building up south of the border at Manzanillo, shouldn't that eventually loosen things up as those goods move north? Plus, we have major tariff refunds starting to process this week.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But the bottleneck simply shifts depending on the mode of transport you're actually using. It's sort of like squeezing a balloon. You apply pressure in one spot and it pops out somewhere completely different.
Right, it just moves the problem down the line.
Exactly. Take the West Coast produce season, for example. Spring just kicked off, and that is completely absorbing refrigerated transport in California. The pressure there is immense. But then look at the rails. Domestic intermodal volume is actually outperforming international volume.
Oh, is that because they're transloading at the ports? Like they pull the goods out of international containers and put them into domestic rail cars to bypass those localized trucking bottlenecks we just talked about?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. It's a massive workaround.
Yeah.
So the narrative that the market is just broadly recovering is honestly false. Regional and mode-specific events are driving the actual reality on the ground.
So if you're planning routing through the West Coast or the Southeast, your standard playbook is probably going out the window this week. Service reliability is going to wobble significantly.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be really variable.
It feels a lot like navigating unexpected detours with a lagging GPS. You know there's a problem ahead, but the map updates too late and suddenly you're stuck in traffic you could have easily avoided.
I love that lagging GPS analogy because broad national averages are effectively useless to you right now. You just can't rely on a general sense of market stability.
Right, because the averages hide all that localized chaos.
Exactly. If you need reliable transport in those specific tightening regions, securing it will be highly variable. You really need to plan for extra friction and potentially, look beyond your primary routing to get things moved.
That makes total sense. We're throwing out the national averages. So looking ahead over the next week or two, what are the specific signals we should be watching?
So I'd say two main things. First, watch to see if that West Coast produce squeeze spreads beyond California.
Because if it bleeds into neighboring regions, that balloon gets squeezed even tighter.
You got it. And second, pay very close attention to how sticky those fuel surcharges remain. Historically, surcharges stay elevated for a while, even if pump prices start to drop. That lag is really going to complicate your near-term planning and forecasting.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Well, before we wrap, consider the long-term angle of those tariff refunds and the record Mexican imports we discussed earlier.
Oh yeah, that's a huge wild card to keep in mind.
Exactly, because if major global automakers successfully shift production into Mexico to avoid tariffs, how will that permanently rewire North American supply chains and alter these regional capacity maps forever? The puzzle pieces might just change for good.